She was betrayed on her honeymoon and returned as her husband's divorce attorney. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence born of reverence, but of tension, like the air itself was bracing for what was about to unfold. The worn wooden benches caught the cold morning light. The clock read 9:02. On the front row, reporters whispered among themselves, ready to witness the fall of yet another family empire. But that day, it wasn't just a company being divided. It was a story. A past returning with the precision of a verdict. The side door creaked open. Her footsteps echoed like measured notes. Black heels, steady stride, a modest dress, her hair pulled back with no concern for vanity. Laura Montenegro walked in unhurried, holding a dark leather folder, the same one she had carried since the beginning of her career. Simple, unassuming, but the silence that followed wasn't for how she looked. It was for who she had become. Across the room sat Eduardo Ferraz. The man she once loved enough to vow the impossible. Now just another client on the other side of the table. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time faltered. There was no anger, no emotion, only the quiet recognition of something that had been decided long before this day arrived. The judge shuffled his papers. The clerk's voice rang clear. Case number 152823, Ferraz versus Ferraz. Hearing for dissolution of marriage and division of assets. The words hovered in the air. Ferraz versus Ferraz. Two identical names, now opposing sides, separated only by a preposition and years of silence. Laura sat down, opened her folder, and arranged the documents with the calm of someone in command of her fate. Eduardo, seated beside his attorney, couldn't take his eyes off her. He seemed unsure it was really her. The woman he had broken, now composed, unshaken, standing before him. And the law. The judge scanned the room, noted the tension, and took a deep breath. "Are both parties aware of the nature of this hearing?" he asked, not knowing how needless the question was. Because Laura knew exactly what was at stake, not just the end of a marriage, but the closing of a cycle that had begun long ago, in a place of warmth, of promises, and of lies. She adjusted her glasses, met the judge's eyes, and answered with quiet strength, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm ready." Eduardo remained motionless, his face pale, his hands restless. The reporters began scribbling notes quietly, and in that moment, Laura looked up and met his gaze again. No one breathed. Time bowed. And then, in a voice low and steady, as if speaking only to him, she said, "Funny how destiny always chooses the same stage for both endings and beginnings." The judge didn't understand, but Eduardo did. The words hit him like a sudden memory. Because years ago, on a warm night by the sea, with waves breaking in the distance and the future still untouched, he had said something similar. When things begin right, the ending never comes. But the ending had come, and what he saw now was the consequence. Laura took a deep breath, her hands resting on the papers, and turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, we may begin." The pen touched the paper. The sound of the gavel cut through the air, and with it, destiny began to turn again. She was betrayed on her honeymoon, but years later she would be the one to sign the end of the marriage and the illusion. But what he didn't know was that what began that day wasn't a divorce, it was a sentence. Some truths don't come to end love. They come to reveal who was truly alone all along. The hotel room breathed slowly. Translucent curtains filtered the late afternoon light, casting liquid patterns of waves onto the wall. A bottle of champagne sweated on the table. Two glasses waited, one still marked with fresh lipstick, for a toast that never came. Outside, the sea pulsed softly, like an ancient rhythm. Laura walked barefoot across the cold floor. Her light white dress still held traces of salt at the hem. Grains of sand clung to her hair like tiny memories of the day. She leaned her forehead against the glass and closed her eyes, trying to hold on to nothing but the sound of the water. Everything in her longed for silence, a sacred kind older than language. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, then again, insistent, as if the device was trying to pierce through the skin of the world. She hesitated before answering. Unknown number, no message, no greeting, just a file. The video opened with a shaky burst of light, then steadied on the reflection in a mirror. A different room, another song playing, someone breathing just out of frame. The digital clock read 01:17. On the edge of the bed, a bracelet Laura recognized from the night before, the maid of honors. Then the mirror showed the rest. His body, his voice, the face she had kissed at the altar just hours earlier. No doubt, no shadows to shield him. It was all there, clear, precise, cruel in its certainty. Outside, the sea went on, indifferent. Inside, the room fell into a dull hum. Laura pressed the screen to pause, but the image lingered, stubborn, like truth refusing to fade before it burned its way through her. She placed the phone gently on the bed, as if it might shatter what little air was left, walked to the bathroom, turned on the tap, let cold water touch her wrists. In the mirror, the woman staring back wasn't the bride from a few hours ago. She was someone who had just learned to breathe without promises. The doorknob turned, footsteps in the hallway. His shadow entered through the crack, along with the scent of night and soft alcohol. He started to say something trivial, about the empty beach, about a couple who asked for a photo, but stopped when he saw the phone still lit, the frozen image, the bracelet unmistakable on the screen. The silence changed temperature. Laura didn't speak. She didn't ask. She didn't accuse or cry. She simply lifted her gaze and held his, as if handing him the task of naming what he'd done. On the balcony, the wind lifted the curtain. The champagne glass trembled on the glass tabletop. Somewhere in the hotel, a distant piano played 2 quiet notes, and the hallway stretched longer than it really was. She picked up the phone, closed the video, and placed it in her bag with a crisp, clinical motion. Then walked to the open suitcase on the floor. Without hurry, she took out a light jacket, slid her arms through the sleeves with the calm of someone learning a new ritual. At the door, she paused, not in doubt, but in acknowledgement of the weight of crossing a threshold. The sea kept its steady rhythm. The room, still inhabited by 2 glasses and a disheveled bed, waited for a story that no longer existed. Laura opened the door, took the first step out. What she didn't know yet was that everything would begin in that exact moment. The hotel corridor smelled of linen and salt air. It was just past midnight, and the sound of Laura's footsteps vanished into the thick carpet. Her dress still traced the curve of her shoulders, her body stiff with that uncertain ache, unsure whether it was cold or fever. Each door she passed bore a golden number, perfectly ordered, so unlike the chaos unraveling inside her. At the front desk, the clerk looked up, startled. "Mrs. Faraz, do you need anything?" The word Mrs. struck her, not because of the sound, but the weight it carried. She took a breath before replying, "I need a taxi. Now? Is everything all right?" "It is." The lie came smooth, without hesitation. The young man hesitated before handing her the luggage key. Laura walked toward the car, feeling the cold wind press against her skin. And for the first time since the video, she took a full breath. The city was still asleep. The harbor lights flickered as if the world itself were running a fever. The taxi drove off, cutting through the island's humid silence. Inside the car, she watched the glass fogged with salt. The driver, a man of indeterminate age, glanced in the mirror now and then, trying to decide if the silent woman in the back was who she appeared to be, a runaway bride. But he asked nothing. He simply drove. Laura looked down at the ring on her left hand. She turned it with her thumb, a mechanical gesture. Then, slowly, deliberately, she slid it off, placed it on the seat beside her. There it lay between them, her and the object, as a mute witness to something that had never been whole. At the airport, she bought the first available ticket, Lisbon. She ordered a coffee she wouldn't drink and stared into nothing while waiting to board. The plane took off before sunrise, and from above the island shrank into a memory time would erase, not in one blow, but slowly, cruelly, piece by piece. Laura didn't cry during the flight. Her expression was neutral, the face of someone processing something too big for emotion. The phone in her pocket, still powered off, weighed like evidence. She thought of deleting the video, but knew it wouldn't matter. Deleting proof doesn't undo the act. When the plane landed, the city was still wet with the remnants of night. She walked out with no luggage. She had left everything behind in the room, just her bag and the light coat on her shoulders. On the street, Lisbon was just beginning to stir. The clatter of bread carts, the clinking of cups on balconies. Life was continuing, and for the first time, she felt she had stayed behind. In the months that followed, Laura disappeared. None of her former classmates knew where she was. Some said she'd gone north, others that she'd changed her name. The truth was simpler. She had withdrawn. Her grandmother's house, tucked away near Sintra, became her refuge. There, time passed with the kind of slowness that heals. The ticking of the old hallway clock was her only constant companion. For weeks, she didn't answer the phone, let letters pile up, read them slowly, one a day, as if opening wounds with tweezers. Among the letters were those from Eduardo. She didn't open them. She recognized the handwriting, strong slanted letters that had once felt reassuring. She kept them all in a drawer. Just the act of storing them away was the beginning of something she didn't yet know how to name. As time passed, she started walking again, first through the garden, then along the stone road that led down to the river. Movement gave rhythm back to her body. Along the way, she passed a long-abandoned manor. Its window panes were gone, letting in the wind. She would pause there sometimes, staring at the emptiness, and think, this is what love looks like when it ends, a house with structure, but no home. At night, she studied. Law books spread across the table. She had decided to prepare for the bar exam. She didn't know if it was escape or purpose, but studying gave her boundaries, something solid to hold on to. A busy mind was the most discreet kind of medicine she knew. 1 year later, Laura Montenegro was a different woman. Grief had become method, silence discipline. She passed the exam with distinction, received an offer from a small firm specializing in civil and family law. She accepted. She worked alone, with near-surgical precision. No case ever seemed harder than her own story. Colleagues said she carried something that commanded respect, a clarity that intimidated. No one knew about the broken honeymoon, the betrayal caught on camera, the marriage that never made it past its first night. The new Laura was made of restraint, and from that restraint, strength was born. Sometimes, walking through the courthouse halls, the sound of her heels would echo in a way that reminded her, where she came from, there's no going back. But one thing never changed, her gaze before a hearing. Steady, cold, yet filled with the calm that only those who've lost everything can carry. On a grey afternoon, an intern placed a new case on her desk. Just arrived, doctor. The client insists on speaking to you personally. Laura thanked her without looking up. She opened the envelope, flipped through the documents, recognized the company's logo. Ferraz Construction. The air shifted. Her fingers paused on the page. The reading continued, but time had slipped sideways. The words divorce, division of assets, consulting, blurred into the distant sound of the sea. For a moment, everything felt simultaneous. The video, the room, his voice. The cold touch of the ring being removed. She closed the folder. The name on the cover, Eduardo Ferraz, was more than a name. It was the return of something she had buried alive. She stood, looked at her reflection in the window. A mature face, darker hair, eyes without shine. But there was serenity, the peace of someone who knows that, eventually, fate demands coherence. The intern reappeared in the doorway. Should I call him back, doctor? Laura paused, then said, No. Tell him I'll take the case. The girl nodded, unaware of the tension in the room. Laura returned to her desk, slipped the documents back into the folder, aligned them with precision. She sat still for long seconds, waiting for the clock to strike 6 p.m., then turned off the light. The hallway glowed with cold lamplight. Her steps echoed again, measured, the same sound as years ago, but now heavier. The sound of someone carrying a story as both weapon and shield. Outside, the rain had started. Thick, silent, a rain that scrubbed the city's concrete clean. Laura opened her umbrella and crossed the street. The reflections on the wet pavement traced the outline of a new story. And somewhere between water and asphalt, destiny began to stir again. She knew it. The reunion was inevitable. But what she didn't know yet was that this case, far beyond a divorce, would become the true trial of her life, and of everything that remained of a love that never had time to exist. The sky over Lisbon broke with a damp mist, the kind that makes the city feel like a dream left unfinished. The law office was still quiet when Laura arrived. She draped her coat over the chair, turned on the desk lamp, and opened the Ferraz case folder. The soft rustle of paper filled the room, delicate, almost intimate. Reading those pages felt like opening an old wound with sterile gloves. Everything was there. Dates, properties, numbers, deadlines. An 11-year marriage unraveling, 3 intertwined companies, a fortune built under decisions she knew carried his name in every line. But what made her pause was the name of the opposing party, Patricia Brandão. Laura leaned back in her chair, hands clasped. Patricia, the maid of honor. The name returned with the same cold precision as the video from years ago. She didn't feel anger. What she felt was sharper, lucidity. She closed the folder and stared at her reflection in the window. Outside, the city was beginning to stir. Wet streets whispered with the first sounds of morning. A distant tram, a barking dog, a group of students laughing on the corner. Life, as always, moved on, indifferent to the ruins of others. The intercom buzzed. "Dr. Montenegro, Mr. Ferraz has arrived." For a moment, Laura considered postponing, but her body moved before her mind. "Send him in." The wall clock read 9:04. Time began to move again. His footsteps in the hallway were steady, familiar in a way that made the air heavier. Laura remained seated. When the door opened, she didn't stand. Eduardo paused, surprised, like he'd walked into the wrong room. The silence between them felt solid. They looked at each other, measuring the distance between who they were and what they pretended to have forgotten. He spoke first, his voice rough, unsure. I didn't know that I would be the attorney on your case," she finished calmly. "I figured you didn't." He looked away, drawing in a slow breath. "I didn't expect to see you again." "No one does," she replied, flipping through papers. "But the world is small, and destiny impatient." He laughed, a weak, nervous sound. "You've changed." "Yes, time does that." The words landed softly, but not without force. Eduardo ran a hand through his hair, lost for words. Laura kept her eyes on the documents, but somewhere between them, the air shifted. His scent crossed the room. The same as years ago, wood and metal, something cold. Her body flinched with an involuntary memory, but she held the moment still. "So," she began professionally, "you've decided to move forward with the process?" "I have." "And Patricia?" "She has too." He paused. "But it's not about her." "That's not my concern, Mr. Ferraz." The Mr. struck harder than any insult. Laura knew that, and she meant it to. "We don't need to revisit the past," he said quietly. "I believe Mr. Ferraz and Dr. Montenegro can resolve this as professionals." "That's exactly what I've been doing," she replied, expressionless. "For a long time now." He watched her in silence, and even without words, his eyes revealed something unhideable. Guilt. Not the performative guilt of someone seeking forgiveness, but the tired guilt of a man who's carried a mistake for so long, he no longer knows what to do with it. Laura stood. The height between them felt smaller than before, perhaps because she now stood on a different plane entirely. Her voice remained low, but firm. "I'll need full access to the company's documents and shareholder agreements, and I want the financial statements for the last 5 years. Of course, I can send them myself. I'd prefer you email them. Let's keep it formal." He nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. "Laura?" She cut him off, severing the sound of her name. "Dr. Montenegro." The silence that followed was almost theatrical. Eduardo stepped back, wordless. She sat again, opened her planner, and jotted something down. The sound of her pen moving across the page was the only thing alive in the room. After a few seconds, he inhaled deeply. "I deserve this." "What exactly?" "Your coldness." She looked up. "This isn't coldness. It's focus. The difference is, you never knew how to tell them apart." He didn't reply, just nodded, a short, resigned motion. And for a moment, Laura saw something new on his face. Time. The lines around his eyes. The shadow of exhaustion. His youth, too, had died on that island night. When he left, the air in the office seemed to change color. Laura remained still for a moment, waiting for the echo of something old to fade. Then she rose, walked to the window, and cracked it open. Cold air poured in, carrying the scent of the river and the distant hum of traffic. Outside, the world continued, but inside her, time circled back to a point it had never truly passed. She rested her hands on the sill and closed her eyes. Her entire body was tense, like just being in the same room with him had unearthed what silence had worked so hard to bury. For a second, she considered quitting the case, but the thought dissolved quickly. There was something greater than memory, the need to face what life had tried to hide. That's what kept her there. The intern's voice interrupted the silence. "Doctor, Mr. Faraz left something for you." Laura turned. The girl held a thin envelope. No sender, just her name written in the center. Laura opened it carefully. Inside, a photograph from their wedding. She was in white, smiling. He in a suit, looking at her like nothing else existed. On the back, a single handwritten sentence. "If I had known that was your last smile, I would have learned to truly see." Laura stared at the line for a long while, then folded the photo gently and placed it back in the envelope. She didn't throw it away, but she didn't file it either. She left it on her desk, resting between the documents. The past, after all, was now evidence attached to the case. By the end of the day, as the city lights flickered on, Laura closed the office and walked through the damp streets. The echo of her heels on the cobblestones matched the rhythm of her thoughts. In each shop window reflection, her face looked like a version under reconstruction. Not the betrayed woman, not the cold attorney, just someone learning to exist between them. The wind carried the scent of rain and the distant murmur of the Tagus. Far off, the sleigh bells began to ring. Laura stopped for a moment, looked up at the pale sky, and took a deep breath. She knew the story hadn't truly begun, and as the final chimes faded, she understood. The real trial wouldn't be in court. It would be within her, and he inevitably would be called to testify. In the weeks that followed, his name began to linger through the hallways like a discreet shadow. Case files, attachments, emails exchanged, nothing out of place, everything within the expected decorum of attorney and client. But beneath the surface something stirred, a quiet disturbance, like the sound of water behind old walls. Laura maintained a professional posture with the precision of a blade. She arrived early, reviewed documents, avoided lingering glances, but every time his name appeared in her inbox, her body reacted before her thoughts could. Her fingers hovered a beat too long before opening the files. Her eyes read each line too carefully. Attached as requested, kind regards, Eduardo Faraz. Politeness had become the new mask for what once was intimacy, and yet there were cracks, small fissures in the neutral tone, words too carefully chosen. Silence is arranged like someone hoping the other still knew how to read what goes unsaid. One afternoon, the inevitable happened outside the meeting room, Coincidence, or something that looked like it, had them exiting the company building at the same time after a pre-hearing session. The sky was overcast and the rain began teasing the glass of parked cars. Laura was closing her folder when his voice came from behind. "Can I offer you a ride? It's about to pour." She turned. "No need." "It's not out of kindness. It's just going to rain and there aren't any taxis nearby." His tone was flat, almost cold, but his eyes were not. Laura hesitated, then nodded. She got in the car without a word. The interior still smelled like before. Leather, woodsy cologne, traces of recent coffee. She stared out the window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. The sound of the rain filled the space between them like a suspended breath. "Your office is in Chiado?" he asked. "Yes." "And you still live in Sintra?" "No." "Where then?" "Lisbon." He nodded. The conversation died at the third traffic light. On the radio, an instrumental song began to play. Laura recognized the melody. It was the same one that played during their wedding dinner. Her body responded before her mind. Tensed slightly but kept her breathing calm. Eduardo noticed. "I didn't choose this song." "I know." They stayed silent until the track ended. When the car stopped in front of her office, Laura opened the door. But before stepping out, she heard him say, softly, almost pleading, "I didn't want it to be like this." She turned to him. "And how was it?" He took a moment. "Too fast." Laura studied him for a few seconds, then said gently, "The guilty always rush." She stepped out and crossed the street without looking back. The rain thickened, dissolving the city's lights into watercolor on the pavement. Eduardo remained still, watching her disappear into a crowd of umbrellas. That night, Laura couldn't sleep. The sound of rain tapping the windows echoed the rhythm of their conversation. There was something unsettling about seeing him that close again. Not the man himself, but what he stood for. The past seeped in slowly, without permission. She got up, turned on a soft light, and reached for a cardboard box tucked deep on the shelf. Inside were the letters she never opened. She stared at them for a while, then picked one at random. Opened it. His handwriting, slanted, firm. "I'm not writing, expecting an answer. I'm writing because the silence is killing me, slowly. I don't know if it was cowardice or desperation that made me lose you. All I know is that since that night, everything I do feels like a way to say I'm sorry." She folded the letter, unreadable. Put it back. But something in her had given way, like an old door cracking open just an inch without meaning to. Days later it happened again. Another meeting. The tension around the company forced Laura and Eduardo to work side by side for hours. Spreadsheets, contracts, asset calculations. In the middle of the objectivity, small gestures took on weight. He handed her a pen, and their fingers brushed. She corrected a clause, and he paused before responding. Politeness tried to mask the old current, but failed. It was as if the air remembered them even if they didn't want to. Over lunch, they found themselves alone. The conversation, inevitable. "You never wanted to know why," he said, eyes lowered. "Knowing why doesn't change what happened. It changes the meaning. Meaning died with trust. And memory. Memory survives only to prove forgetting is never complete." He gave a tired laugh. "You always speak like you're delivering a verdict." "Maybe that's all that's left of me." The waiter arrived with coffee. Laura watched the steam rise from the cup. There was something hypnotic about that line of vapor, fragile, fleeting, but real while it lasted. She thought, love is like that. It lives somewhere between the moment and its disappearance. That night she returned home. The bedroom was dark. She took off her shoes and sat at the edge of the bed, still. The ticking clock filled the silence. Through the window, the city's lights shimmered. Slowly, she opened her hand. In her palm, the photograph he had left days ago. She stared at her frozen smile, the white dress, the moment before the fall. There was no pain anymore, only recognition, that love and humiliation can coexist in the same memory. She placed the photo inside the book, resting on her nightstand, then turned off the light. The room sank into darkness, and for a moment she felt something shift, as if time had finally begun to fold shut over the past. But fate wasn't done, and what felt like closure was merely the warning of another wound to come. The days that followed unfolded under a tense silence, the kind that precedes a storm long formed but not yet unleashed. The Faraz case had grown more complex. The new documents included joint accounts, companies registered under third parties, and Patricia's name surfaced more than once. Subtle, yet persistent, like a watermark bleeding through the paper. Laura examined every detail with the precision of someone dismantling a puzzle. And the deeper she went, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a web of appearances and veiled loyalties, and at the center, Eduardo, the man who once vowed love and now guarded truths like a man protecting an empire. That morning, the office was empty. Rain beat steadily against the windows, its rhythm echoing a countdown. Laura flipped through the documents line by line when something caught her eye. A transfer made months earlier to an account she immediately recognized. Patricia Brandão. The amount was substantial. And the description vague. Confidential consulting. She froze, then leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on the screen. There was a bitter taste to the discovery, not for the betrayal itself, long past, but for the realization that the cycle was repeating. He hadn't changed, and perhaps she had still hoped he had. Hours later, the phone rang. "Doctor, Mr. Faraz insists on speaking with you. Says it's urgent." Laura glanced at the clock. 7:10 p.m. "Tell him the office is closed." He said he'll wait. The rain outside pressed on thick and constant. She took a deep breath. "Send him in." Eduardo appeared minutes later, his suit soaked, face drawn. He held a crumpled folder in one hand, his damp hair clinging to his forehead. He looked like someone who had walked through the day without shelter. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "Office hours are over. Then hear me as someone who once knew you, not as a client." Laura studied him. He was different. Not the self-assured man from previous meetings, but a face tense with something close to pleading. Still, her tone stayed professional. "Speak." Eduardo placed the folder on the desk and opened the documents. "I found out Patricia has filed a parallel case. She's trying to claim part of the company, says she has proof I transferred assets in exchange for her silence." Laura remained still. "Did you?" "Yes, but not the way she claims. I owed her money. She helped me when everything was about to collapse. And in return, nothing. No one helps a married man, married to a woman like her, Eduardo, for nothing." He sighed, eyes heavy. "I know. I should have seen it coming." Laura stood and began pacing, her heels marking time against the floor. "So that's it," she said finally. "You betrayed her, then paid her, and now she's betraying you in return. The irony is almost poetic. I never loved Patricia. You didn't have to. You just used her." The silence that followed weighed in the air. He stepped closer, his voice low. "And you, do you still hate me?" "No." "Then what do you feel?" "Nothing that concerns you." Eduardo lowered his gaze. "Sometimes I think losing you was the only real thing I ever had. You didn't lose me, Eduardo. You simply never had me." He gave a sad smile, the kind of smile that accepts a sentence it cannot appeal. "You speak like you never felt anything." "I felt. And I learned." The light flickered. The wind outside slammed against the windows. The rain now tapped like impatient fingers. Laura returned to her desk, gathered the documents and said, "I'll represent you until the end. But beyond that, there's nothing left." He didn't reply. He just looked at her one last time, like someone memorizing a face before exile. Then turned and left. The sound of the door closing echoed louder than it should have. The days that followed grew heavier. Patricia had filed an emergency petition, accusing Eduardo of asset concealment and prolonged infidelity. The media picked up the story, and the Ferraz name returned to the headlines. At the firm, Laura received messages from colleagues and clients, questions veiled as curiosity. She pretended not to notice. But inside, past and present were merging again, dissolving the boundaries she had spent years building. One morning, arriving at a preliminary hearing, she saw Patricia for the first time in a decade. The same face, more polished now, more tense, eyes outlined with arrogance and fear. Patricia smiled, brief, calculated. "Laura Montenegro," she said, approaching. "Or should I say, Laura Ferraz?" Laura held her gaze. Montenegro is enough. Ferraz was an unfortunate coincidence. They stared at each other for a few seconds. The entire hallway seemed to hold its breath. Patricia went on, her tone laced with venom. "He still talks about you, you know. Sometimes I wonder if he loves you or hates you." "They're similar feelings," Laura replied coolly. "Both require the other to still exist." Patricia looked away. "You're good. You always were. But be careful, dear. Too much justice can turn into vengeance. And too many lies, Patricia, become a habit." The woman smiled and walked away, her expensive perfume trailing behind. Laura stood still for a moment, breathing slowly. She knew. That encounter marked the turning point. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was thick. The lawyers spoke of numbers and clauses, but there was something deeper in the air. When it was Laura's turn to speak, her voice sliced through the room, calm yet unforgiving. She argued with precision, never raising her tone, dismantling opposing arguments with the calm of a surgeon separating flesh from bone. Eduardo watched in silence. Patricia flipped through her papers with growing irritation, and the judge, unaware of their history, took notes, oblivious to the weight that hung between the three of them. When the session ended, Laura gathered her papers and left without a glance back. But just as she reached the door, she heard Eduardo whisper, "Thank you for defending me, even when I didn't deserve it." She didn't answer, but the words lingered, like dust suspended in late afternoon light. That night, Laura returned home, body worn, mind full. She sat at the table, opened her laptop, and began writing a motion, every word deliberate, every sentence measured. Rationality was her way of staying sane. But at the end, after saving the file, she stared at the blinking cursor, its rhythm echoing the heartbeat she didn't want to feel. Slowly, she closed the computer, turned off the lights, and stepped out onto the balcony. Outside, the wind smelled of wet earth, the sky dark, heavy. The world felt suspended between a before and an after. Laura knew something was about to shift. What she didn't know was that, to fate, justice and irony were the same word, and that the truth soon to surface would free no one, only reopen the wound everyone pretended to forget. In the following days, the city seemed to mirror her. Everything slowed, voices softened. Time thickened into something fluid and dense. Laura no longer slept well. The sounds of the apartment, creaking floorboards, the stubborn ticking clock, the wind-tugging curtains, were the soundtrack of a world still resisting stillness. The Ferraz case consumed her every hour, and yet silence remained the heaviest part. Eduardo hadn't appeared since the hearing, no calls, no emails. His absence wasn't indifference. It was calculated. Some truths are only spoken in silence. On Thursday morning, Laura arrived at the office before anyone else. The air smelled of dust and fresh coffee. On her desk, an unmarked envelope, thick paper folded with care. She opened it gently. Inside, a letter dated 10 years earlier. She recognized the handwriting instantly. Gustavo Ferraz, Eduardo's younger brother. The lines were firm, fast, but there was confession in the ink. "Laura, if one day you ever learn the truth, I want you to know it wasn't what it looked like. I sent the video. Not because I hated you, but because I loved you in the wrong way. The truth is, Eduardo didn't know he was being filmed. Patricia provoked me, and I gave in. I used jealousy as an excuse to destroy you both. I thought if I pushed you away from him, maybe I'd have a chance, but I didn't. And in the end, I destroyed everything." Laura sat, the letter in her hands. She read it again, then a third time. No visible emotion crossed her face. But inside, something began to realign. Like a wall crumbling inward, quietly. Gustavo. She remembered him at the wedding. The eyes that avoided hers, the forced smile. Subtle absences. A discomfort always masked by forced kindness. Now, it all made sense. But the revelation brought no relief. Only a different kind of pain. The pain of knowing she had suffered for an illusion, that her distance, her fury, her abandonment had been carefully engineered by someone else. Not the guilty one, but the coward. The day crawled forward. Laura told no one. She tucked the letter into her leather folder and worked as if nothing had changed. But that night, when the office emptied, she stayed. She opened her computer and pulled up the case file. The words on the screen blurred in the cold glow. She typed a short message to Eduardo. "We need to talk. Tonight." His reply came within minutes. "Tell me where." They met by the river, near the docks. The wind was damp. City lights shimmered across the water like broken lines. Eduardo arrived first. He looked different, his suit unkempt, face bare. When he saw her approach, he tried to speak, but she raised her hand. "Before you say anything, I want you to read this." She handed him the letter. He read in silence. His face shifted slowly, from disbelief to restrained despair. When he finished, he looked up. The paper trembled in his hands. "My brother," he whispered. "Yes. He did this?" "He did. And you never knew." Eduardo stepped back, staring at the wet ground. I thought I was being punished for what I did. And you were. But not for what was truly yours." The silence between them grew dense. The river's murmur filled the space where words failed. Laura looked at the man in front of her with the distance of someone who remembers the past, but no longer belongs to it. "What do you feel now?" he asked at last. "Nothing I can use." "And if I said I never stopped thinking about you, that changes nothing. It changes everything for me. Then keep it for yourself." He met her eyes, desperation calm and quiet. "I would have done everything differently, Laura." "No, you wouldn't. You only knew how to be who you were." The wind surged, carrying the river's salt. Laura pulled her coat tighter. "The truth doesn't absolve you, Eduardo. It just rearranges the crime." He nodded slowly. "What will you do now?" "What I came to do." "Close the case. And after?" "After... nothing." Eduardo looked down. "I always thought love could save us." "Love saves those who don't lie inside it." She turned to leave. But before taking her first step, his voice came again, low, almost a plea. "I lost you over something I didn't do." Laura stopped, didn't look back. "No, you lost me for never fighting for what you knew was yours." And then she walked away, her steps firm on the wet stone. The river whispered. And the city's echo faded into the night. In the days that followed, the office sank into the silence of an ending. Laura finalized the reports, sent the final filings, and submitted the case to court. The divorce was approved uncontested. Neither of them attended the final reading. That same afternoon, she returned the office keys, left the documents neatly stacked, and walked out without goodbyes. She wandered the city aimlessly, crossing old streets, letting the cold air slice through her memories, each step a quiet cleansing. At dusk, she stood once more before the river, the same place they had last spoken. The water flowed, indifferent, unchanging. Laura pulled from her pocket Gustavo's letter and the wedding photo. She folded them together carefully and dropped them into the water, watched the paper float for a few seconds, then dissolve. It was like watching her own story sink without sound. When she returned home, the night had fully arrived. The apartment was still, the air warm. Laura made tea, turned off the lights, and left only the lamp glowing. Steam rose slowly from the mug, and she realized the weight was gone, the anger gone, the love too. What remained was something else, a peace not born from forgiveness, but from exhaustion. For the first time in years, she slept deeply, and sleep came without dreams. The next morning the phone rang, a voice she hadn't heard in years. Laura Montenegro. Yes. This is Almeida and Prado. We're opening a position for legal director. Your name was recommended. She paused for a few seconds. I'm open to a conversation. And as she hung up, she noticed the quiet symbolism in it all. Life beginning again with the same ease that it ends what must. But fate, patient as ever, still held one final scene. The inevitable reunion no verdict could ever prevent. Autumn arrived unannounced. Leaves blanketed the sidewalks in ochre tones, and Lisbon's air carried that kind of chill that doesn't hurt, just urges the body to retreat inward. Laura now worked at a new firm, leading a small team. The days were methodical, the hours predictable, and there was a subtle sense of balance, the kind that comes only when you've stopped expecting anything at all. But fate rarely respects balance. It has a habit of testing serenity with the sudden return of a familiar presence. That Friday afternoon she left work early. Rain had just begun to fall, thin, punctual. She walked the damp streets to a cafe near Largo do Carmo, a place she used to go alone just to read. The inside was warm, scented with fresh coffee and wet wood. She sat by the window, opened a book, but didn't read. The rain thickened, blurring the glass like a moving watercolor. Then the door opened, and with a gust of wind he entered. Eduardo. Dark suit, hair slightly tousled by the rain, the same reserved air as always, but with something new in his expression, a quiet sadness, almost resignation. He looked around, searching for a seat, and only then did he see her. For a moment, time seemed to start over. Laura lowered her eyes to her cup, but he approached. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the seat across from her. "It's a public place," she replied, expressionless. He sat. The waiter came over. "The usual," Eduardo said. Laura looked up. "You still come here?" "Sometimes." "Habits are stubborn. Like certain people." The silence that followed echoed with old shadows. The clinking of spoons, porcelain tapping, the hum of other conversations, all distant now, as if the world had stepped back a few feet to leave them alone. Eduardo watched her for a long time. "I read in the papers you're leading a major case. Work. You've always done it well. And you've always known what to say to please me." He turned to the window. Rain streamed down in vertical lines, like a curtain. "I tried to reach you after everything happened. You didn't need to. I did. Eduardo, you need to understand. The truth I uncovered doesn't change what happened. I didn't betray you. But you lost me. And that's worse." His words hung in the air, heavy and sincere. Laura took a deep breath. "You lost the right to explain. Still, I want you to know what I never said." He pulled a small metal box from his coat pocket, placed it on the table. Inside was a ring, the one from their ceremony, restored. The gold now dull, the symbol worn. "I kept this all along," he said. "Not as a memory, but as a punishment." Laura looked at it, but didn't touch it. Punishments are useless when they only serve to comfort the one who failed. Maybe. But it's the only way I've found to stop lying to myself. The waiter brought his coffee, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The steam rose between them, thick, white, like a veil. "Are you alone?" she asked. "I am." "And Patricia?" "Left after she lost the case." "And Gustavo?" "He's in Geneva. Tried to ask for forgiveness." "And did he get it?" Eduardo looked into her eyes. "Some mistakes aren't forgiven. They're carried." Laura studied him quietly. There was a new tiredness in him, a kind of honesty that had no shine to it. Perhaps time had finally done what she never could. It dismantled the man he pretended to be. "I never wanted to destroy you, Laura. You didn't have to want to. Do you still feel anything for me?" She paused before answering. "I feel the way you do when looking at an old photograph. I recognize it, but I no longer belong to it." He nodded. His eyes weren't teary, just clear with a painful kind of lucidity. "It's strange to see you so distant and still feel you so alive inside me. Distance is the only place where some people are allowed to keep existing." They sat quietly for a while, watching the rain. The world outside faded into grey. Eduardo stirred his coffee. Laura checked her watch. Neither wanted to leave first. At last, she spoke. "A few years ago, I would have asked you to leave. And now? Now, I just want you to listen." He looked at her, intent. Laura placed her hands on the table. "I hated you. Then I tried to forget. Then I tried to understand." "And did you?" "I realized it wasn't you who destroyed me. I was the one who gave you the power to do so." Eduardo didn't move. She continued, calm, almost clinical. "I loved you in a way that erased everything I was. And when you left, there was nothing left to fill the space. And now I've learned to exist in emptiness. And emptiness, Eduardo, is the opposite of pain." He lowered his face. The coffee had grown cold. The rain was easing. Laura stood, grabbed her bag, adjusted her coat. He followed her with his eyes, but didn't try to stop her. But as she reached the door, he said, almost a whisper, "If there were a second chance." She turned back, and for a moment they looked at each other as they once had, but without the same weight. "Some stories," she said softly, "only make sense because they ended." She walked out. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet earth and fallen leaves. Laura walked slowly without hurry. Her heart for the first time was silent. Behind her, inside the cafe, Eduardo remained alone. The ring on the table, the coffee cold, the sound of the door still echoing. He took a deep breath, looked at the ring for a long moment, and finally left it there, then walked out, without it. In the street, they walked in opposite directions. Between them, the city remained alive, indifferent, immense. Each carried what was left. She, the serenity of a survivor. He, the weight of one who understood too late. The wind blew from the river, soft, cold, and for a moment, though they couldn't see it, the droplets caught in the streetlights, shimmered like memories refusing to dissolve. Their story ended there, not with reconciliation nor resentment, but with the quiet acceptance of what time always demands, the whole truth, even if it hurts. Winter arrived quietly, like a guest who slips in unannounced. The days were short, and the city breathed slower, as if it too needed time to digest the past. Laura had a new rhythm now. She worked at a small firm in Alfama, facing the river. Her mornings were always the same, the sound of boats, the scent of roasted coffee from the corner, the cold wind sneaking through the cracks. The past no longer visited as often. It still came sometimes, in a phrase overheard, a familiar voice, a scent on the street, but faded quickly, like a memory with no home. She no longer fought it. She had learned. Forgetting is just another way of remembering. That afternoon after work, she walked to the docks. The sun was descending slowly, casting copper light on the water. Gulls traced lazy patterns in the sky. She stopped near the same spot where, months earlier, she had let the letter and photograph sink. The river flowed, calm, inevitable, tireless. She stood there, watching the surface ripple in the wind. The sun's reflection danced like a living thread, and the sound of small waves against the stone was the same as years ago, when everything was still a promise. But now there was no pain, only recognition. Life goes on, even when we don't ask it to. A few weeks later, the firm assigned her a mediation case. It was a young couple filing for separation. They sat across from each other as she listened. The words were familiar, the same explanations, the same long pauses, the same look of two people trying to say goodbye, but afraid of what comes after. As they spoke, Laura saw echoes of herself in them. The fear, the confusion, the desperate effort to hold on to something long gone. And for the first time, she spoke not with her legal voice, but with her human one. Sometimes it's not love that ends. It's the illusion that love could save everything. The couple fell silent. So did she. And that's when she realized how much she had changed. Her voice no longer trembled in the face of others' pain. She had learned to listen without losing herself inside what she heard. The following week, she received a formal invitation, a talk on ethics and empathy in family law. She accepted. The auditorium was full, young lawyers, students, a few judges. She spoke for nearly an hour without scripted lines. She spoke of the difference between justice and reparation, of the danger of certainty, and the courage it takes to move forward even when right and fair don't always align. At the end, a young woman raised her hand. "Doctor, do you believe love can survive disappointment?" Laura paused for a few seconds. The silence in the room held her gently. Then she said calmly, "Love doesn't survive disappointment. It transforms. Sometimes into memory, sometimes into wisdom." She paused. "And when you can tell the difference, that means you've already healed." The applause that followed was soft, sincere, but Laura didn't really hear it. The sound dissolved into the echo of her own thoughts. Outside, the night wind blew strong. City lights shimmered on wet pavement. As she walked, a figure across the street caught her eye. It took a second to recognize him. Eduardo. He stood still, hands in his pockets, watching her. He didn't cross, just gave a small wave. She nodded slightly in return. There was nothing left to say. Time had already said it all. For a moment, they stood frozen, separated by the crosswalk and by life. Then the light changed, and the crowd moved between them. When the traffic cleared, he was gone. Laura kept walking home. The cold wind stung her face, but it was the kind of cold that keeps you awake. At home, she lit a candle on the table and placed her coat on the chair. The apartment was quiet, warm. Outside, from some upper floor, a piano played faintly. She sat, took a blank sheet of paper, and wrote a single sentence. Some stories don't end. They just learn how to stay quiet. She folded the paper, placed it inside a book and shelved it. Then she walked to the window. Outside, the river reflected the city lights, calm, continuous, unrushed. She watched until the wind blew out the candle. The room fell into a soft darkness. And in that gentle shadow, Laura smiled for the first time in a long while. Not from memory, but from understanding. Months later, a new case landed on her desk, a familiar name on the file. Not Eduardo's, but someone linked to that old family. She looked at the document, took a deep breath and thought, fate is persistent, but so am I. She closed the folder, lit the lamp, and began again. With the same calm, the same clarity, the same certainty that in the end, time always plays the role of judge. The clock would read 9:02, just like in the beginning, and the sound of the pen moving across the page would be exactly the same. But this time, there would be no pain. Only the serene precision of someone who had learned to sign her own freedom. And this time, she knew. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, disguised as peace. The sound of the river endures, steady and unchanging, until the very last second, as if to remind us that life goes on, even when the story ends. How many Lauras do you know? Women who believed love would be a shelter, only to find in pain their own foundation. Women who were judged, betrayed, silenced, and who one day returned not to prove anything, but to exist with dignity. Laura once believed that justice was the opposite of emotion. But time taught her that sometimes justice is simply the courage to move forward without the hunger for revenge. Because in the end, Growing means no longer needing the other to understand, but finally understanding yourself. She was betrayed on her honeymoon, and years later returned as her husband's divorce attorney, not to destroy the past, but to finally sign her own freedom. And you listening now, where are you watching this story from? What part of you still needs to be freed from something long over? Write in the comments, tell us your city, and share. What was your turning point? That moment when love stopped being a promise and became a lesson. Because in the end, destiny is not a punishment. It's just the mirror where we finally see what we've always been, survivors of what we once called love. She was betrayed on her honeymoon and returned as the attorney in her husband's divorce, but this time, it was time that signed the ending.